All right, y'all. Day number 47. Today is June 27th. It's about 7:15 a.m. And today is a no repeat full body HIIT workout. It's Tuesday, first day working out this week. We're going to try and get 4 days in. And I have a video in the background, Business Acumen for Leaders.
Did you know sweat from stress is actually smoke? And another kinds of sweat? That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant.
Development Consultant, Mr. Brian Ackles. Brian, you now have the floor.
My 12-week 2.0 program. It is time to
Kelly, thank you very much, and everybody, welcome to this webinar. This is a topic which is it's a bit difficult to understand from the title. So let's jump in and look at what our objectives are, and that'll start helping to set the stage for what we're talking about when we refer to business acumen. So by the end of this webinar, what I'm aiming for is that there will be a general recognition of the importance of big picture thinking in business planning, gaining an overview of the decision-making criteria for organizations, and also appreciate how business etiquette and ethics affect your organizational success. So with that in mind, let's jump into a bit of a definition about what do we actually mean by business acumen. So loosely defined, it's your ability to assess external markets and make effective decisions. But it's not just external markets, it's also being able to assess all the internal pieces as well. So you're looking at being able to integrate data to achieve the results that you need to have. And this integration of data requires that you have a certain knowledge and understanding about what's going on. So you need to understand finance, you need to understand strategy, you need to understand decision making, and it's not just about understanding it, it's actually more about being able to internalize this and take all of this information and make decisions. So you're making business decisions based on a myriad of inputs. It's coming at you from every direction, and these decisions really affect how the business operates, right? So you're looking at the cost, the profit margins, cash flow, market position, competition, etc. So business acumen is really the holistic term for all of the information that you as a manager and that you as a leader have access to and that you use to make effective decisions. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is how you put all of this together. So every business deals with both short and long-term interactions. So when we start looking at the big picture of running a business and making decisions, we need to consider both of these types of interactions, long-term and short-term. So if we look at short-term interactions first, so these are the ones that we do on a day-by-day basis. So these are your customer interactions, the sales calls, dealing with inventory concerns, dealing with project execution, project management, dealing with the details on a day-to-day operation of an organization, of a business, of a division, of a region, etc. That's the short term. When you consider the big picture, you also have to consider how the short-term interactions impact the larger picture and the longer view of the organization. So the example that we have on the slide here is talking about, aggressive sales techniques. Well, if you're too aggressive in your sales, you may damage your customer relationships, and you may achieve the sale today, but you're not going to have any future business with the customer. And as any business owner will tell you, and as any executive will tell you, particularly in sales, it's not about the sale. It's about the relationship, and it's about generating ongoing business, becoming a partner with your customers. So keeping that in mind, look at all of your short-term interactions. The same can be said for issues that you have within projects. how you communicate with your customers, how you deal with problems when you're shipping something out to a customer and it doesn't arrive, how you actually deal with that interaction as well. So all of these have an implication on the bigger picture and the longer term interactions. So when we talk about the longer term interactions, what we're actually talking about is the relationships. The relationships that you're building, both inside and outside the organization, to enable you to grow and to be successful. So these require, a longer view of the world. It's not about going out and making a sales call, and if you don't make the sale that day, well, you can always go make another sales call tomorrow. When you're talking about sales and you're talking about customer interactions and account management, it's about building a relationship. It's about understanding what organizations need, what business challenges your customers are facing, how you can potentially affect that. That's just on the sales side. But it's also cultivating relationships with your vendors. How do you deal with your supply chain? How are your vendors hooked into your business? Do they understand your needs, your drives, how your business works seasonally? What happens when something isn't received from a vendor, or when there's a problem with a vendor? How does that relationship work? How will they resolve all of this? This is typical if you're purchasing anything from anybody. This is a challenge that you need to have, is to build that relationship. I'll give you an example. I've been on both sides of the vendor and customer fence, and I'm currently on the customer fence, on the customer side of the equation, and I've just finished managing and dealing with a very large program of work from a very large multinational vendor. And I came from the large multinational vendor side previous to this current position that I'm working with now. When I started this whole program 3.5 years ago, one of the things that I started out talking to this organization about, talking to the vendor about, was how important it was going to be that we develop a really strong and close relationship built on respect and built on mutual success. And there were certainly some hiccups along the way, and there were some challenges before we figured out how to deal with each other. But I can honestly say that at the end of the program of work, both this vendor and the company that I work with, both know that this was one of the most successful projects that any of us have been involved in, which is somewhat unique in the industry that I'm in, which is, in this particular case, it was a communications system that we were replacing. So these relationships can start by talking about and having a fundamental discussion about respect. If you don't cultivate good relationships, the flip side of this is tragedy. When I was on the vendor side of the equation, I dealt with customers who, no matter what we as a vendor did, took a very antagonistic approach, took a very confrontational approach, and it was a very difficult interaction over a number of years. We were the vendor, we had to support our customer, absolutely, but it made the whole process difficult for everybody involved. It made it difficult for the customer, it made it difficult for the customer staff, it made it difficult certainly for us as a vendor, it made it difficult for our large organization, and it made it difficult for our suppliers as well. Long-term relationships is what's going to take you into the future. And getting to these long-term relationships, again, you require to have this holistic understanding of your business, the market that you're in, your customer's business, and what the future is going to look like potentially for that interaction between you and your customer and your vendors, your staff, etc. This is really what business acumen is really all about. So a lot of this is you're making decisions, and you make decisions every day. Now, when we start talking about mindful decisions, you're looking at decisions which have a bit more importance. They're a bit more important to the company. So oftentimes you're having to make critical business decisions under stress, and you need to recognize what that situation is doing to your ability to make effective decisions. So look at how your emotions affect how you make decisions, how external pressure affects how you make decisions. Recognize the events that have made you in the past make less than good decisions. I won't say poor decisions. Every decision is good, whether it's good in the short term or good as a learning experience. But look at where you can improve your decision making by recognizing what external events have led you to more challenging decisions than not. So when we talk about mindful decision making,
Are you keeping your customers happy? After just one bad experience, 84% of customers are.
this combines the pure reason, logic, but it also combines intuition. Intuition is that trait that we develop with experience. And we learn things throughout our career, we learn things throughout our life, and all of these things juggle around in our head, and it becomes part of our intuition. And this becomes a factor in how we make decisions based on where we are at a particular point in time, like today. So some of the steps to making good decisions, good mindful decisions. Gather the information that you have. And this is the reason, this is the rational, logical piece that you need to have. Gather the information you need to make a decision. Gather the financial numbers, gather information on resource availability, gather information on market trends, on future, on the competitive landscape. Right? Gather all of the pure information that you need. But then listen to your intuition. What does your experience tell you, coupled with all of this information that you have? And then make your decision. But write your decision down, but don't act on it straight away. Give yourself some time to consider the decision. Acting rashly can have serious consequences in the long term. So take some time to consider your decision, mull it over. The term, sleep on it, really does help. We've probably all experienced this. You think about doing something before you go to bed, you wake up in the morning and go, maybe that's not such a good idea, or maybe it's a great idea, and you've really confirmed that. And as you're sleeping, your mind is going through this, and it's your intuition, it's your experience, which is also matching with the information that you come up with in terms of reason and logic. If you're comfortable making the decision, once you're comfortable making the decision, then act on it. And this is a mindful decision. You're not making a snap judgment. You're making a decision based on information and based on your intuition. So, all of this about decision. Understand that everything in an organization, every business role, every part of the business is related to each other. So if you think about the business roles that exist within your organization, these are places where you're gathering information from. Understand that your production group and your customer service obviously affect sales. If your production is having challenges and your customer service is not up to industry standard, or is not exceeding your customer's expectation, then this can have direct impacts on the profits, on your reputation in the marketplace, on your reputation within the industry. Every single person, every single role in your organization affects how your organization is viewed. And I cannot stress that enough. From the person that answers the phone to the person that keeps the building and keeps your facilities clean. And every person in between has an effect and has an impact on how you work. So, understanding all of that, understanding that there is an interrelationship between every part of the business, understand also that the leadership of the company is ultimately responsible for the culture and values within the organization. The culture and values are really what's going to guide all of the different aspects of the business in terms of marketing, finance, governance, information, people, how they're reflected. I'm in a public safety facing organization right now, and our basic mantra or basic bottom line is to protect lives and save property. That's why we exist today. That is what we do. And that is our company value. So that's our simple value statement. The culture of the organization is driven by everything that we do has an impact on public safety. So everything we do has to have a very high margin or a very high excellence. We're looking at 5 and 6 nines of uptime for technology. All of this comes into how we make decisions and what type of decisions we actually make. So these are all part of culture and values. So as we move through this whole process of looking at decisions and understanding how each part of the business is related to each other, we start getting into the idea that, how complex this thing is in terms of being able to manage a business. Now, we talk about running a business and running an enterprise. Well, it's also about, looking at your leadership of a division, leadership of your team, leadership of a group of people. All of this still requires that you have the ability to look at the big picture. And fundamental to all of this is being able to have an answer to some basic financial questions about your organization or about what you are responsible for. It's definitely not enough that only your accountant knows this or that only the finance department knows this. You as a leader, you as a manager need to have an understanding of all of this. Now, I'm going to preface this next bit of the discussion by stating very clearly, I am not a financial professional. Okay? I look at this, I look at information, and I look at the financial information that I need to know, and I've learned enough about how to do this. And that's key. We can all learn enough about how the finances in the organization works. You need to be aware of the financial parts of the organization. You need to understand how this guides your company and how it guides it to success. So fundamentally, how do we make money? You need to understand, how does your company, how does your organization make money? What is your input to that? The purpose of a business, of a for-profit business, is to make a profit. Okay? Simple as that. You need to make money in order to survive. If you don't make money, you close the doors. But you have to understand what actually makes us money. So you look at your products and you look at your services, and you figure out which ones are actually making us money, which ones are actually, and I don't want to focus too much on the money here, which ones are making us money, but also which ones are important to us to have, or which products and services do we need to have to remain in this business space. And that's an important question, because not all of the time is it about the pure money part of a product or a service. As long as you're not losing money on it or losing too much money, and that's a decision that is made at the corporate level, depending on where you need to be. You make decisions on understanding all of this, understanding your product makeup. And it's a simple example here. So a bakery. Bakery makes 3 products: croissants, cookies, and cakes. So croissants make up 80% of the sales. Cakes make up 15% of the sales, and cookies make up 5%. And as the slide says, some days they throw a lot of the cookies out. But why would an organization continue to make cookies if they're a bakery? And that's the fundamental question. Perhaps in this market space for this particular bakery, the cookies are kind of a lost leader. Right? They come in, they have cookies out on, pieces of cookies out on the counter, people can try them. They're not a big selling item, but they do bring people in, and it does show that we are a bakery, we have a number of products for sale. So again, it may be that although cookies make up very little of this, and you look for the cookies in your own organization, they might make up a small part of sales, but they might be important to the overall business that you're in. So when you're looking at the financial aspects of an organization, you need to look beyond the pure profit motive, beyond the pure, well, we make so much money out of this, we should concentrate only on that. Because then you might be missing other opportunities to grow in different areas. So perhaps this bakery, might look at all of this and say, well, how can we make our cookies, how can we increase the sales of our cookies? how do we investigate, how do we determine why our customers aren't buying our cookies? Why are we throwing so many of them out? Perhaps it'll be a recipe change. Perhaps it'll be a different way of marketing cookies. And again, look for the cookies in your own organization and look for ways to enable those to enhance the organization. So understand, again, from the financial aspect, what were your sales last year? How much did you sell last year? So growth is required to stay competitive. If you don't grow, your competitors are. Right? Growth means that you're expanding your market share. You're either building new markets or you're gaining market share from your competitors. So understanding sales results year over year is so fundamental to understanding the status of the organization that you're working with. So a very simple example, if you have 1 year sales of $90,000 and next year's sales of $100,000, you do the math, and it works out to about an 11% increase in your sales year over year, which is not too bad. But you have to understand that you're looking for growth. Now, if the numbers were reversed, and you're looking at it from the flip side, and you made 100,000 last year and only 90,000 this year. Again, you do the math, and you see that you'll have a decrease in sales, and you start looking at, well, why were our sales lower? What's happened? What sort of mechanisms do we have to put in place? Or are we looking at a longer term picture? Are we looking at more of a 3 to 5 year spread in our sales, not just a year over year issue? And again, these are the types of questions which you start to ask once you start to have the information about the finances and about other aspects of the organization. This is, again, all part of the sort of holistic business acumen. So then you look at your profit margin. Okay, so you make money, you make sales, but that doesn't necessarily equate to profit. So the profit indicates how well your company is running. So typically large companies make 13% net profit margins, perhaps a lot higher gross profit, but by the time we'll talk about this a little bit more. And the higher the profit margin, the more efficient the business is being run. But there's a balance. There's a balance against efficiency and being too lean to be able to react to new opportunities. So again, this is part of the balancing act you play within operating the business to say, okay, our margin is really good, our net profit is really good, it means we're really efficient. But can we afford maybe to be a little bit less efficient, to concentrate on looking at growing the business in this particular area? Again, looking back to your cookies. Maybe it's time to put some more energy and put some more efforts and resources, decrease your profit and your net profit margin a little bit to allow you to explore for new ways of expanding your organization and growing your organization within your sphere. So there's two types of profit margin. There's gross profit and there's net profit. So gross profit is really it's your sales amount less the cost of what you've sold, either the cost of the goods produced or your cost of sales. Your net profit takes into account other costs within the organization. So it includes the cost of goods sold, it also includes your operating expenses, it includes interest that you may be paying, other administrative costs, it includes your taxes. So all of these become costs which you then apply to get your net profit. And it's not nearly as simplistic as this, and this is why we have strong accounting groups and strong financial teams within an organization. But at a very high level, that's the difference between your gross profit, which is really sales numbers less what it costs you to create the good or service, and net profits are everything, including all other expenses, against your sales numbers as well. And that difference will tell you how much you're spending to operate the organization to actually create the sales. So again, all of this comes back to financial literacy. So you see the importance of understanding the numbers of the organization, and you see the importance of being able to have that information as part of your decision-making process. You're making mindful decisions based on inputs. So what are some of those inputs? Well, some of the other inputs are the financial reports and the financial information that your company generates on regular intervals. So you look at you need to understand and have the ability to read these different reports. And we're going to talk about three of them briefly. We're going to talk about an income statement, we'll talk about a balance sheet, we'll talk about cash flow statements. Okay? These are the internal reports that your organization must create to meet financial and legal obligations. They have to be able to report on all of this. So again, all of this information, internal information, matches up with your external information to help you make decisions. So let's talk about the income statement. So the income statement lets you see how much you've made in a particular period. Now usually income statements are generated interim, so an interim income statement is generated quarterly, and then you get an annual income statement at the end of your fiscal year. So it shows information on the sales, gross revenue, cost of goods sold, the gross profit margin, operating expenses. So each expense, what does it actually cost you to operate? And if you look at the larger the organization, the more complex your operating expense becomes. Your net profit. If you're a publicly traded company, it also identifies the earnings per share. And also any other expenses and income. So you may have investment income, you may have tax liabilities, you may have real estate costs, etc., which also are shown in the income statement. So it wraps all of these numbers up into one particular statement, and I'm not going to go through the actual details of the statement in the webinar. Next in this list of financial reports is the balance sheet. So the balance sheet shows you where you're at in a particular time by showing your assets, your liability, and your current equity within the organization. So this basically tells you how healthy you are from a financial perspective within the organization. So typical items on the balance sheet, your current assets. So what are your actual liquid assets? What could be turned into cash? Or what is cash? What do you actually have in terms of cash? Your total assets, which is your longer term investments, perhaps. Your current liabilities. Your current liabilities include your payroll, your invoice, your outstanding payments to vendors, your outstanding any outstanding payment that you have, any outstanding liability, lease costs, etc. And then equity, which is the difference between your liabilities and your assets. And then in terms of publicly traded companies, you can use the idea of stockholders' equity, which again, I'm not going to delve into. It becomes a very large and complex discussion on how all of this changes and how all of this fits within publicly traded companies. And there's lots of legislative and legal requirements, and I don't want to get myself into much trouble here. And then we look at the cash flow statement. So this provides you information on how much money was generated and how it was used. So they contain usually the three most recent reports in the three most recent periods, and it depends on your organization what those periods will be. So there's some items on your cash flow statement. So it's net cash used by your operating activities, net cash used or provided by your investing activities, and net cash used or provided by your financing expenses. So your cash, your net increase or decrease is made up of adding up all of these, your net cash from operations, investments, and financing. And that will tell you whether you have a net increase or a net decrease in your cash position. So you always begin this cash flow statement though with the net income from the income statement. And the cash flow statement ends with the cash equivalent, which is at the beginning of the balance sheet. So you see how all of these three financial reports actually come together. None of them are done in isolation. And in the full business acumen course, it actually goes through this in a lot more detail, with a lot more concrete examples. So, like I prefaced all of this discussion off about financial literacy. I'm not an accountant. I'm not trained in business finance. I have taken courses on this. I have spent a lot of time in business, and I've been exposed to this. I talk to our financial group, and I talk to my financial functions in different companies. You can learn, and you can learn about this. There's tons of information, books, online publications. If you are look to government websites to make sure that you're meeting all of your legal obligations. Look at blogs and different websites. Look at different databases of information. Talk to your internal people. Talk to your internal financial people. They will be more than happy to help you understand the information and the balance sheets that they're actually creating and walk you through them. So you can learn. That's the bottom line. If you don't feel comfortable in this, and if you feel that you need to learn more, go out and find ways to do it. So that's really been talking about what we have in terms of the inputs that we take, the raw material inputs that we take to build decisions. So we look at the financial aspects of the business, and we've talked about our intuition, we've talked about our experience, but there's more to business acumen than just that. So it's also looking at resources and looking at your internal resources, the people, actually, the top dollar resources, the people that make up your organization. We all know that managing people is a very complex endeavor. There's been a lot of discussions, and there's a lot of courses, and there's a lot of education around developing your skills to become an effective manager and an effective leader. Part of having a good grasp of business acumen is being an effective manager and developing your management skills. Because your management skills have a direct result on the results of your organization. You don't do this in isolation. Your work is done by the people that report to you. You're providing leadership to them. You're taking their inputs to help you make decisions on where to take the organization. So management skills in this are really, really key. So understanding all that, it's a very broad topic, and I'm not going to go into it in any great detail. There are a lot of great programs and courses out there from New Horizons, which walk you through management and walk you through different aspects of management learning and management skills. One of the things I will talk though is about critical thinking. I've talked a lot about this massive information that is coming at you from inside and outside of the organization. Right? You're constantly looking at the external market, you're looking at the competitive landscape, you're looking at your customers, you're in dialogue with different vendors, you're going to trade shows, you're reaching out to pretty much everybody that is involved with what you do, and you're gathering information, you're subscribing to journals, you're getting synopsis in your emails every day from different parts of the organization and from external sources. So all of this information is coming at you, and you need to be able to analyze this critically, because if you're not careful with this information, it can lead you down the road to a less good decision. Again, I'm trying to not call it a bad decision. So in terms of critical thinking, you need to ask some pretty particular questions. So, information that you're getting, is there assumptions that are inherent in the information that you're getting, or is it verified? Is this information true? And this is the whole fake news. Is what you're receiving accurate, and is it true? Is it verified, or is it assumed to be correct? And I can give you a very simple example of this. We've all driven down the streets in the towns and cities that we live in. Best sushi in Vancouver. Seaside is our sushi restaurant. The first question that goes through my mind is, according to whom? This is an assumption. Unless it's been voted on, unless there's been some empirical measure, it's only the assumption that that's the best sushi in Vancouver. So identify what these assumptions are and identify whether information is verified. Look at the perspectives. Look at how somebody views something. Is there another way to view a particular piece of information? So you receive a report that a customer has just laid off, or a vendor has just laid off 1,000 people, and they have a 15,000 person workforce. So they lay off 1/15 of their workforce, which is a pretty significant number. So one perspective of this is, wow, they seem to be having problems. Why are they suddenly laying off so many people? That can't be good. Maybe we should be looking for other vendors. But maybe look at it from another perspective. Maybe they're laying off these 1,000 people because they're rationalizing their organization and they're trying to streamline their business. And they've made the hard decisions about getting out of certain products and services that they were offering, and it's necessitated a downsizing of their workforce. Now the thing is, you have to be able to find out why something has happened. So again, you're looking at your assumptions and you're looking at different perspectives. So examine the evidence of why something occurred. And again, it's about evidence and it's about verification. Understand or attempt to understand what somebody is telling you or what a piece of information actually is. Somebody tells you something, it's not a bad thing to make sure you're clear and that you understand what they're saying. I'm not certain what you mean by that statement. Can you expand on it? Or if I hear you correctly, are you saying this? And you're paraphrasing and sending it back to them. So make sure you've got a clear understanding and make sure you're using all the tools that you've got and all of your avenues of communication to ensure that you have a clear understanding of the picture and you're not basing it again on assumptions and on misinformation, if you will. Also look at the implications of the information that you have. A lot of the information that you get is irrelevant. I get stuff that comes across my inbox every day about, security systems. A lot of it right now is around security systems. Moving into a secure cloud environment or network security. It certainly is the watchword about the technology industry these days. A lot of this and most of this stuff is not relevant to the work that I do. Okay, I'm responsible for operations of our communication systems, our wireless and wired communication systems in the organization. That is my responsibility within where I work today. Although I'm interested in the technology evolutions of different parts of what's happening in the industry, it's not relevant to the decision making that I need to make today, this week, next month, or this year, looking out into a further time frame. So understand the importance of the information you have and how the implications it has on your decisions. So again, critical thinking. So question, the example here is question statistics. You receive a statistic from somebody. 8 out of 10 people agree that drinking coffee can stain your teeth. Well, who says this? Who are these 8 people? How was the study created? Is this just somebody picked up the phone and called 100 people, came up with 80 people out of 100, said that coffee stains your teeth? Thanks very much. Well, that's a statistic then. But is that a credible source? Was there any testing? Was there any before and after? So again, you think about the source of information. Is this real? Does this actually make sense? Where does this information come from? So this is critical thinking, and you have to take the time to do this, particularly when you're making larger business decisions. Understand the implications, understand where information is coming from. So you evaluate.
favorite bra, y'all. All right. Another one in the books. Do something positive today for your mind, for your body, for your soul, and for someone else. All right, y'all.